Hey Jeff,
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So, thank you so much for just coming in to chat with me for a little bit. I just want to say, over the last 3 years or so, you've become one of my favorite singers ever. So, I'm really excited to be chatting with you.
Let me see if I have some money. I can wire you some money for that compliment. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Deal. Awesome. So, first of all, the first question I got to ask you that I've pretty much been asking everybody that I've been interviewing recently, how you been dealing with the madness going on right now?
Well, luckily, I'm fortunate that because I have the lengthy career that I have and the just the I don't want to say luck. It kind of is luck. I have the fortune of being able to dive into the creativity and use music as sort of a therapy. Also, obviously, as a way of making sure financially we're still afloat without having, I'm not able to tour. I'm not able to do any live gigs, but I have the good fortune that I've been just constantly singing and making music and taking sessions that I normally wouldn't take or taking sessions I normally wouldn't have time for. And I've added actually some really cool influences into my arsenal of what you'll hear in the future. So it's a great thing to have, especially being in this business so long that I'm able to actually still find other means and other influences to add into what I'm going to do into the future.
That's awesome. And speaking of your list of the stuff that you do, you have like one of the longest lists of credentials that I've ever seen in my life, which is amazing. Do you ever get a chance to sleep?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. Most people, for starters, I'm not a perfectionist by any stretch. I'm blessed with the fact that I can do what I do in a quality sense without spending days and weeks and months to do it. When I work on a song, whether it's writing or demoing or even doing a final version of a song, it literally only takes anywhere from 25 minutes to at the most 2 hours to knock it all out, because I do leave a lot of imperfections. I don't want to be so perfect that when you see me live, you go, "Whoa, he's so good in the studio, but live he's just pitchy and timing and blah blah blah." I want to leave some kind of human side of things on the records, so I don't really fix too many mistakes, or I don't go back and go, "Oh, that's bothering me." I'd rather leave it more organic, so it gives me a little kind of headspace when I'm on tour. When you hear me sing live, you don't get perfection on the record, so don't expect perfection live. And there's too many singers, especially a lot that I love. They're so perfect in the studio versions, and then you see them live, it's like, oh, that didn't meet up to the standard. I don't want to be one of those. I want to be able to kind of match everything that I do in the studio that I'm able to do live.
Absolutely. That's a great viewpoint. I, as a musician as well, share the same viewpoint as you as well.
Yeah.
So, like,
And
if
when,
you
and
have,
when you think about it, so if it takes 2 hours in a day to do something, and 2 hours out of a 24-hour day it's not a lot of time that it takes to get something done. That pretty much answers it. I can knock an entire album out in say 10 days, and people go, it takes some people a year, or it takes some people 6 months to do an album. And
Mhm.
I'll do it because I want to do it, because I can,
Yep.
not necessarily because I have to. Oh, you only have this time, you have to get it done. Whatever the results are, the results are. I do it based on just this is what I do for a living.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of albums, the thing you got going on right now, the new Wet album is coming out next week. I've been listening to it for the past few weeks, and it's another great one. So congratulations on that.
Thank you for that.
Um, this is a question that I forgot to ask Eric back when I spoke to him a couple months back. But when it comes to writing the material, Eric writes the music, but is it you, him, or both of you that share like lyrical duties?
I write I do like anywhere from a third to half the album when it comes to lyrics. But Eric is the kind of writer, because he is a singer himself. He's a
Yep.
singer songwriter himself. When he writes a song, there are a lot of musicians that can sit and write a body of music based without any melodic locked items or melodic lines that come with that piece of
Yep.
music. Eric's not one of those. When he's writing a song, he's going through chord progressions. He's got the melodies already kind of spinning in his head. So he'll send me like a song, like for instance, "How Far to Babylon" on the new album. It, he'll send me a kind of a throwaway lyric, "Blah, blah, to the better hearted." da, da, do, do. You know, he's just, it's more vowel sounds, but
Yep.
he's using actual words, make no sense at all. But
Mhm.
that particular song, he actually said, "How far to Babylon?" It wasn't meant to keep. It was just a throwaway kind of something to say while he was showing me the melodies. And he does this with all his songs. That particular song,
Yep.
I tried multiple ideas, multiple different lyrics, but I could not get away from the Babylon ending of how far to Babylon. And I told him, I'm going to actually write a song based on that throwaway lyric that makes no sense. And I made sense of it. And it's funny because I've been able to do that with everything he sends me. And he always does that as a songwriter. He always writes the melodies, and he'll send me the song with the melodies that I just have to kind of fill in the lines. I have to write the words to fill in the themes and the lines. That
Yep.
particular one was one that it was just so stuck in my head. I couldn't get away from How Far to Babylon. So I decided to write about that.
Absolutely. That song in particular is like one of my favorites.
Thanks, man.
So like one of my other favorite songs on that record is "What Are You Waiting For?" Like the chorus in that song just gives me chills. Like how did that
Awesome.
come about?
That comes from the other side of the pond. You know, there's certain stuff that even as far as the second album, Rise Up, that Eric started writing with other writers, other style of writers and other formats of musical writers. And that's kind of what's widened and broadened the wet sound. I remember even early on, he would bring a song to us. It sounded a bit too poppy. There was, what was the Broken Wings, the song on the second album. He said,
Mhm.
guys, this might not be for us. It's a great song. I love the song, but I think we should try it. And I said, let's never say no to a great song. If you co-write it with somebody, it's meant for somebody else. If it's meant for like a pop artist or whatever, if it's a great song, it's a great song. We can turn it into a wet song. I'm never worried about that. And it's no exception for, you know, What Are You Waiting For? All the songs that we're doing that he's working with other people that he brings to the table, we make them into wet songs. That's the bottom line.
That's awesome. So you came on my radar through Sons of Apollo actually over the
Okay.
last 3 years when Psychotic Symphony come about. And like I mentioned, you got such a really cool and unique voice. How did singing start for you?
I've been singing as far back as I can remember talking. It's the old cliche, music found me. I didn't find music.
Mhm.
I grew up in a very musical household. My mother was a singer. My father was a singer when they were young growing up. When my mother became pregnant with my brother, they realized, okay, that was just a dream. We have to go into real life mode and raise the kids. So they didn't pursue their dreams in music.
Hmm.
That to me wasn't an option. I knew early on, as far back as I knew I had a voice and I could sing, I knew that's what I wanted to do for a living, even as far as like 5 or 6 years old. And the Jackson Five, Michael Jackson was my first inspiration because he was a kid, not that much older than me when he was breaking,
Yep.
and me being a kid, that was my first, I guess, influence, my first level of somebody to look up to. So I kind of followed the Jackson Five in the very beginning stages, and as Mike got older and he started dabbling into more
The solo
of more
stuff.
themes and just became a solo artist, I kind of just used that as my stepping stones. I wasn't into rock whatsoever until bands like Toto and Journey came about, even Foreigner, because as far as I'm concerned, Kiss and Ted Nugent and Cheap Trick, they there was nothing there for me. I didn't relate to any of it
Right.
until you got a singer like Bobby Kimball from Toto who had this great soulful voice. He
Absolutely.
sounded like an R&B singer. He could have been in one of the many black groups.
Yep.
And the way he sounded, what the way they injected rock into the R&B soul style, I finally knew I could marry the two as well. Steve Perry was the same. He grew up Motown, Sam Cooke, and all that,
Yep.
and they utilized his voice with the injection of hard rock guitars. That's when it finally opened the doors to the hard rock arena for me. But I was already a teenager by then.
Right.
When I was with Ingve, I was only into rock for maybe 2 or 3 years as an influence, that I was actually living this stuff out. So it wasn't a lot of experience I had, but luckily I was into Dio and Maiden and all that by then, by the time I got the Ingve gig, because I was able to now fit into that format. And but through the years, I've always leaned on and relied on my Motown R&B experience.
That's amazing. Yeah. And speaking of Toto, like we just spoke with Steve a couple months back as well, and he was
I
super
love Luke.
fun. And Toto
Luke's
was
the best. He's the most unfiltered motherfucker out there. I love
Oh,
him.
absolutely. I think I think with you and Steve, you guys should do something together.
There was a there was a short time where we were Frontiers had the idea of putting us together, and it was short lived. We never got to do any songs together, but we had meetings. We all intents and purposes. We revisited the idea of that in 2008, I believe. We were talking about it, but Luke is always so busy. He's always got his hands. It's kind of like me. We're both always so busy. Where do we find the time? Where do we find the window of opportunity?
Yep.
I don't think we can't leave this life without doing something together. I absolutely love Luke. I love his playing. We have nothing but the most lovable mutual respect for one another. So before we leave this earth, we got to do something together. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. Steve, if you're watching this, make it happen.
Call him Luke. You'll get more respect.
Exactly. So, listening to many of the songs that you've written over the years, it seems like one of the big topics that you love to write about is love. Is that one of the topics that's of most importance to you?
One thing you got to know about what and how I write, I do most everything I do is in double entendre. I don't write when you see a song title, it might not be about what you think it is, especially when the word love is used.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is reflective on Sons of Apollo lyrics. A lot of it is reflective on my last solo album, Wide Awake. All the lyrics on the Soto albums that I've done, the word love can. I'll take for instance, there's a song. There was a single off my last album, but the solo album called "Love's Blind."
Yeah.
In general terms, you see "Love's Blind." Okay, you're talking about falling in love with somebody. You might be blinded to the fact that you don't care about all the things that happen in that person's life because you're just so blind in love. Nothing else matters. But the actual lyrics of that song were written for my stepdaughter, teenage girl, who was going through the normal growing up, growing pains, and the things most of us have already experienced as we're growing up. It's no different now with the social media, the bullying, all the different things that happen in a teenager's life.
Right.
And she was going through a hard time, and I wrote this song as a personal message to her. These lyrics are to her about the fact that I know what you're talking about. I've been there, done that. And before you can love anything or anyone else, you have to find that love within yourself. The love within herself was blind.
Yeah.
So you can equate the lyrics to a relationship, but the actual lyrics are about finding that love within yourself before you can go and love something or someone else.
That's amazing. I
And,
love
and
that.
I do that with everything because
Yeah.
I want my lyrics to be sort of the catalyst that a book is, for instance, to a screenplay when they make the movie.
Yeah.
When you see a movie, you get a 2 hour version of what a book that might take you a week to read is about. But with the book, you get all the inner stuff that might mean something personally to you. So you can see the title of one of my songs and think you know what it's about, but until you read the lyrics and you really soak it, it's like, hang on, I think he's talking about something else here
Yeah.
completely.
Exactly. So, the only band that I actually got to see you on stage with was Sons of Apollo. During both times that you came up here to Toronto, the
Right.
first time you came to the Opera House, and then the
Yeah.
Mod Club just at the start of 2020. I was there,
Right.
and during that first time when you came to the Opera House, I actually spoke with Billy before the show. So you have two records out right now with that band, but is the groundwork laid out for album number three?
We discussed it somewhere last year. We discussed doing this, but I think that was snuffed based on the ideal that we have a lot of unfinished business with 2020. Well, I don't even like to call it that anymore. It's almost like we're
Yeah.
putting an X on it. MMXX.
Yeah.
There's unfinished business with that album. We all feel it was such a strong, great album that if we do a new one, it's almost like that one gets dwarfed and gets left behind.
Mhm.
I think we need to resume where we had to leave off, where we were forced to leave off, and finish the cycle for that album before we start thinking of a next. Because with any new album, the majority of the songs you're doing live come from that record. And since you were at the Toronto show, you'll know that we did the entire record except for one song.
Yeah.
If we do a new album and the next tour we structure, we're going to have to drop a lot of songs from that album and maybe some from Psychotic Symphony.
Yeah.
I would rather us focus on pushing that record a little more because I think it has more life in it. And we have the life that we want to bring forth in those recordings. So before we do anything new, I think we have to have some unfinished business.
Absolutely. Um, I just want to say, like, one of my favorite moments from the second time you guys came at the start of 2020. One of my favorite moments from that show is that time when you guys were playing the closing track off the 2020 album. And there was at one point where you got, like, I think Mike maybe messed up or something. You had to start all over again.
I remember that.
Oh man, that was
Wait, that's
classic.
something I don't think I've ever done in a professional situation. Normally, you fuck up and you realize everybody they find each other and you carry on. And
Yep.
for him to just say, hang on, let's do this again."
Let's do, yeah.
It was such a human moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We are not robots. We are not programmed. We are not computers. We're people, and we fuck up too.
Absolutely. And the other thing, the other classic moment is during the first time around. I remember the PA went out twice,
Yeah.
and you guys were like having a big laugh about it. And
Oh
man,
yeah.
that was awesome.
We've blown a few systems through
Yeah.
through the course of our careers. We've blown up a few systems.
Oh yeah. So just a couple more, and then I'll let you go. So
Sure.
with all the worked with many people over the years, but if you were to put together your dream lineup, who would round out that lineup on guitar, bass, and drums?
That's an easy one to answer. I
Like
would
if,
say,
if you had to pick, if you had to pick people that you did not work with yet that are on your
oh,
list.
well, now you're throwing that into the equation, because if you had to just pick my dream lineup, it would certainly be Mike Portnoy, Billy Sheehan, Derek Sherinian, and Bumblefoot.
Okay.
But if you're choosing people I've never worked with, you know what? I've stopped trying to put dream scenarios together, because as far as I'm concerned, how do you top a Sons of Apollo scenario?
Yeah.
I can't top one. I can't put a dream scenario together, because that is my dream scenario.
Yeah.
That being said, I've done pretty much everything I've set out to do, musically, genre wise, band wise, album wise, with so many records under my belt and the different people I've been fortunate enough to work with. I don't really have a dream list anymore. I really don't. I don't care if I was able to, dead or alive, have a band that includes Eddie Van Halen and Prince. It doesn't, that doesn't mean as much to me now as it did, you know, not having what I have now
Yeah.
behind me. So I just feel fortunate enough that where I am now, I can't even think of a dream scenario. I'm living the dream scenario.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. So last question, and then I'll let you go. And I just started asking this question like maybe just in the last interview I did. But I think I think many people will have a different answer for this one, but I always find it a very interesting one. After many years in the music business, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you have learned?
The biggest lesson I've learned in the industry is about the industry. One of the biggest um, bits of advice I can give anybody that wants to do this for a living is learn the business. I didn't know the business. I trusted the business, or I relied on others who knew the business to do this for me, whether it be hiring a lawyer to read a contract, whether it be asking advice from other people who knew the ins and outs of a contract or an agreement. I entrusted them, and I realized you can't trust anybody but yourself, in terms of, not that you can't trust somebody to read out something for you or pay somebody to do that for you, but you're looking out for you more than anybody else is. And that's the bottom line. You're looking out for your best interest more than any manager, any lawyer, or even a family member, because in the end, you have to take care of number one. You're number one in that scenario. So you got to learn the business, because the business will swallow you whole. It's just, you've heard too many nightmare situations, and the artist is out there just selling records, selling out arenas, and not even to be able to pay their rent. Who's
Yeah.
making all that money? So you got to find out how the monies and how the different things are channeled, because
Yeah.
without this knowledge, you're just going to be blind and thinking, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, I got millions of fans, and like,
Yep.
why am I still eating fast food? Because that's all I can afford to get by.
Yeah.
So the biggest bit of advice I can give anybody is realize that it's show business for a reason. When you're
Yeah.
up there doing the show, the business might be walking out the back door with, taking all your proceeds with it. So
Yeah.
learn the show and the business together.
Yeah. And that's something that I also like to tell just regular fans that may not know much about the business. Like if I see them in comment sections, saying all these things that they believe that is just like completely wrong.
Yeah.
Like learn the business, even if you're not in the business. So you can at least know what's going on and know what you're talking about.
Well, the business end is what is besides the egos. in most bands is the biggest contributing factor to bands and artists breaking up and breaking from one another.
Yeah.
When an artist walks away from a certain manager or a band breaks up, it could be because one or two band members are sick of giving it all and not being able to walk away with any dividends on it.
Yep.
So you have the infighting. All of that begins once the success begins, because there's so many parameters that you need to know and learn about the success end. There's no book, there's no handbook or manual on something to refer to. You have to learn everything about what you're doing and know about it, so that way you're knowledgeable about all the different moves that are happening within the context of your career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Jeff, I just want to say that was fantastic chat. It was great to chat with you. I wish
Right.
you all the best with all your projects going forward. And the next time you're able to come up here to Toronto with any of your bands, I look forward to seeing you again.
Awesome. Thank you for having me today. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and let's get through all this crap together so we can start playing live again.
Absolutely. Same to you, Jeff.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Take care.
See you, man.